Hello again, everyone. I'm Dr. George Simon, and welcome to another edition of the new Character Matters program. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we've been in for some time now, and that affects every single aspect of our lives, and has helped to create a climate in which we no longer feel safe and where things that were once considered rare or unusual or outrageous or unthinkable are now even more commonplace than ever. And we also talk about what we can do to turn things around, to stem the tide. It all boils down to character, and so I've spent my entire professional life studying this phenomenon and writing about it in 5 different best-selling books, a couple of which are international bestsellers, and also in my numerous writings, including many free articles on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. Today I want to talk about what I'm asked about almost every time at any workshops or seminars that I have done. The most frequent question I'm asked is, okay, Dr. Simon, I think I'm married to a person, or I think I'm involved with a person, or I think I have to work with a person who I believe to have a serious character disturbance, maybe even a character disorder. Can he, can she, will she ever change? Is it possible? Do I have any business holding out hope? Is there any hope? And my answer is always the same, but it's complicated. The simple answer is it depends. And it depends on a number of things. Now, contrary to some popular wisdom, there's a lot of information out there about personality and character disturbances these days. There didn't used to be a lot of information out there. In fact, there was a push for many years to discount the entire notion of personality and character as a factor in human behavior. Some in the medical profession were pushing the idea that every aspect of our behavior was a matter of biochemistry, and that behaviors that we regarded as a reflection of character issues really had to do with chemical imbalances that could be straightened out or ameliorated with chemistry, with biochemical agents of some type. Now we recognize how important character disturbances are, and there's a lot of information out there, some of it very misleading. And one of those misleading bits of information is that folks with personality and or character disturbances simply cannot change because they're hardwired against it. Well, this is overly simplistic. By nature, a person's well-honed, solidified style of dealing with the world, seeing the world, by nature, personality and character, is resistant to change. People adopt ways of seeing and doing things that appear to work for them, and they hang on to those ways of seeing and doing things, even in the face of difficulties, for various reasons, some of which have to do with our basic wiring. That's part of it. Some of it has to do with our past experiences and how well we were conditioned. And some of it has to do with the dynamic interplay between those two factors. But human beings are unique among all other creatures on the planet in their ability to grow and to learn to do better and to be better. Most parents in years past came to appreciate that every child was different in the way they were predisposed, and because they also had different experiences growing up that shaped them in one way or another, they developed different tendencies in their personality and character formation. And we used to devote a lot more time to attending to these issues, to watching carefully how someone was developing, where they needed assistance and help, where they needed more training, where they needed more reinforcement for stepping outside of their comfort zone or for going against their natural inclinations, for learning how to better control their impulses, especially if they tended to naturally be somewhat impulsive. In short, we knew that everyone was differently predisposed and had different things happen to them that scarred them in some way. We took all that into consideration, and we still made it our business to help people grow in character. So once again, the answer to the question of can a person or will a person ever change is complicated. It's not as simple as no. No one with a personality or character disturbance will ever change. It's not that simple. Change is difficult, especially once a person's personality or character is fairly well set and ingrained, especially in later life. It's difficult to change. But there are certain things that can help a person change. And I want to talk about a couple of those things today. Some ways that you can tell that a person at least has some capacity for growth and change and further character development, even if they've proven themselves to be difficult to live with or to work with. So I want to talk today a little bit about shame and guilt and regret and remorse and contrition, because these are 5 very, very key elements, crucial to character growth. Now, when it comes to shame and guilt, which I will attempt to define in just a bit, there's been almost as much misinformation out there as there has been about character disturbances. Let me explain very basically the difference between shame and guilt. Guilt has to do with some pangs of conscience related to the things that we've done. So guilt is mostly about feeling bad about an action or behavior, whereas shame has to do with feeling bad about who we are. And it's been a popular notion for many, many years that guilt, feeling bad for something that you did that maybe hurt somebody else, is a good thing. But shame is never a good thing. I'm here to tell you that that is probably the most misguided thing you will ever hear. I've worked with many, many seriously flawed individuals. Individuals who had to spend a lot of their years confined in some way, restricted in some way, sometimes imprisoned, because they could not function or would not function well in this world. And I can tell you that to a person, no one who ever seriously turned their lives around ever did so out of a sense of guilt. I know folks who have felt badly for a minute every time they did the unthinkable, but it never stopped them from doing it again. That's how seriously impulsive and misguided and underdeveloped in character they were. The only thing that made a difference was when the day came that they were no longer happy with the kind of person that they had allowed themselves to become. When they wanted to not just do differently, but be different, to redefine themselves as a person, because they had become ashamed of the person that they were. So yes, shame can be toxic. It can be personal growth and self-image damaging. It can be all those things. But is all shame bad? Absolutely, positively not, no matter what you read or hear. Some shame is not only good, but the capacity for shame is crucial to decency of character. In fact, the most notoriously disturbed characters on our planet, the most malignantly narcissistic individuals, are primarily characterized by their shamelessness. They act without compunction. They do without any consideration, and they don't care how that looks. In fact, they proudly engage in the reprehensible. They have no shame. And it's that absence of shame that defines the seriousness of their pathology. Now, let me talk a little bit about regret, remorse, and contrition. And by the way, there are several articles on my blog at drgeorgesimon.com about this. And I will have more to say about this in coming episodes. It's important to talk a little bit about regret, remorse, and contrition because they are pretty good barometers about whether someone is properly motivated to do the work that it takes to grow in character. And by the way, it is work. It's hard work, and it gets harder as we grow older and set in our ways, which is why so many people think it's impossible to change. But it's not impossible. It takes work. It takes a level of commitment that borders on the heroic at times. And regret, remorse, and contrition are all indicators of how well someone is doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these matters, and as I mentioned, I'm going to talk more about them in future episodes. First, I want to say a little bit more about the idea of working to change and tie it into what I was saying earlier about guilt and shame. You know, it's one thing to do something unthinkable or to make a serious misstep or to hurt someone and then feel badly about it, to have pangs of guilt. That's one thing. And frankly, that's relatively easy. And frankly, also, it's not one of those things that will necessarily help a person change. I know far too many people who feel badly every single time they make the same mistake over and over again. So feeling guilty is easy. Taking up the cross of doing the painful work of self-reconstruction, of resisting the urges that have been with you for a lifetime, and embarking on new paths, doing the hard work of making yourself a better person, that's different. So guilt, as some masters in the field have said in the past, guilt is a cheap substitute for the legitimate suffering that it takes to be a better person. And I can have regret for something I've done because it cost me. And that's really what regret is all about. It's like sending your regrets to someone because there are two events that you have on the same day and you can only attend one. And so in the RSVP, you send your regrets that you can't attend because you can't be in two places at once. Regret has much more to do with what the personal cost to you is about something you've done that you probably shouldn't have done, or something you failed to do that you probably should have done. Remorse is different than that. Remorse has to do with feeling legitimately bad for the pain that you caused someone else, for the hardship that you brought into somebody's life, for the mess that you made. It's different than regret because it has much more to do with empathy for the other person or for the impact on society as a whole, for your misconduct or your failure to act properly. And contrition goes far beyond that. The word contrition comes from the Latin contritus, and it literally means a crushed spirit. And a person who has contrition is broken-hearted because of the pain they've caused someone else. Their spirit is crushed because of the damage they did to somebody else's heart. They hurt because of the hurt they caused. And when somebody hurts because of the hurt they caused, the only way to mend the hurt is to do the work that it takes not to cause that same injury again. So this is how you tell when someone has any kind of contrition and maybe, just maybe, is motivated to really change. Their hurt is not about what it cost them. It's not regret. And it goes beyond just having some degree of empathy for you. It has to do with mending the pain inside of them by working like a crazy person to ensure that nothing like they did before happens again, whatever they have to do. You don't have to drag them into therapy. You don't have to push or shove them. You don't have to set up demands. They're motivated to do that themselves because their heart is aching as a result of the ache they created in you. We used to know these things. We have to relearn all these principles of character because we're not taught them anymore. And I'll be talking more about the process of real change and how to be a better judge of whether a relationship has any chance of improving on the next edition of the New Character Matters. So until next time, I'm Dr. George Simon, thanking you for tuning in. I invite you once again to avail yourself of the many articles on the blog that are free of charge and of my books, all readily available on Amazon and in multiple formats. We are working on the audio version of my latest book, Essentials for the Journey. I'm so happy that folks are passing the word about this, spreading the word. This is how I want it to happen. This is how it happened with my other books. Please pass the good word along one heart at a time, we're going to change things. So until next time, take care. Once again, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. George Simon. See you next time.